Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
Triple S, sometimes I'll be talking to people and we'll be talking about saving money in qualified plans and how they get a tax break for doing that. And we'll be talking, and then we'll say, but at a certain age, you have to take money out of the account so you pay taxes on it. And people will say to me, wait, the government makes me take money out of the account? I thought it was my money. They're like, well, they give you this tax break, but you have to follow their rules. And they say, I gave you a break and let this money grow and compound for you tax free. But now it's time to pay the piper. I'm Daniel Agemy.
And I'm Andrew Agemy. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is RMDs, required minimum distributions in 2023. So, Daniel, that's a great thing to start with there. And that's exactly what happens, right? Why do I have to take money out, right? And well, the idea is it's time to pay the piper, like you say, right? In 1975, I remember driving and seeing the signs that said invest in an IRA, invest $2,000 in your IRA today. And the whole idea was, well, you'll be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. And you can get the benefit of the deferred growth on that. Well, it was all an idea that the IRS had, right, to be able to make more money. Because if you paid a couple $100 into taxes back then for that $2,000, well, today it's probably grown to that $2,000 is probably grown to who knows $20,000, and you're going to pay $4,000 in taxes. So it's a crazy thing, right?
Yeah.
But
And with this inflation, especially this asset price inflation, right? The debasement of money where dollars are worth less and less. Your account can be a huge number, right?
right,
Lots of
right,
people have over $1 million in
right,
their 401ks, and that's all taxable. So if that's in a traditional IRA, you gotta earmark half of that for the IRS, right?
yeah,
So your
exactly,
$1 million is not really a million; it's more like a $500,000.
right.
Um, and they want to make sure they get their cut. So hopefully you're not going to take it all out at once. But there's these things, and the ages get a little bit confusing because it's always changing, it seems. But you have to start taking money out of these things. Now, you've probably heard, 70 and a half thrown around, right?
Yeah.
Folks listening probably heard of that 70 and a half age. But tell us about all the ages. Tell us about all the ages that have to do with taking out these
Yeah.
RMDs or required minimum distributions.
Okay, so they made some tax law changes in the past several years, and so I'm not was sparing you what things were. I'll just tell you what they are now. If you have already started your taking your RMDs, well, you have to continue with that. But if you have not started taking your RMDs, the current age for taking required minimum distributions is 73 years old. And so if you're turning 73 in the year 23, well, then, actually, if you're turning 73 and 23, that means you were born in 1950, which you've already started your RMDs. So, um, what's happening is it's whoever is turning 73. When you turn 73, you have to start taking your RMDs. So people who turn 73 next year will have to start next year and continuing on from there. But then in year 2033, it's going to be 75 years old. So they're moving it up. Now, who knows what's going to change in between now and then? Because, like you say, Daniel, it seems like it's changing all the time. It was 70 and a half for decades and decades and decades. And now, all of a sudden, the past, what's it been? It's only past couple years, really. It's
Yeah.
gone, it's changed a couple times in the past couple years. So who knows what it's going to be in 10 years from now. But here's the thing is that, it's very important to make sure you take your RMD properly, because if not, there's a penalty. And again, the penalty has changed on that. Currently, the penalty is 25%. And so the government will want 25% of your RMD as a penalty. So if your RMD is $10,000, they're going to want $2,500 as a penalty on that, and then a taxation on that, and everything like that. It's unfortunately, it is what it is. But here's a big thing that I want to bring across to you and our listening audience is that, um, first of all, what we're talking about here is we're talking about IRAs, we're talking about 401ks, we're talking about 457s, we're talking about 403bs. However, we are not talking about Roth IRAs. Roth 401ks count toward RMDs, but Roth IRAs don't. So we're talking about these kinds of plans that you have had money put into at work, or maybe your own IRA that you put money into when you turn 73 years old from here on out, that you have to start taking your RMD, your required minimum distribution. You take a little bit out. Okay. Currently, if you're 73 years old, the amount you have to take out is about 4%. Now, remember, you put this money into these plans little by little. So, therefore, you want to take it out little by little, because if you take it out in big lump sums, you're going to be hit with huge taxes, huge taxes. So, you want to avoid large withdrawals from these accounts. I need to remind you, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is RMDs in 2023. And we're glad to be able to bring this information to you to help you understand and to know what you don't know. We have a paper that goes along with today's show. It's called Simply Understanding Required Minimum Distribution, Understanding RMDs. If you would like that free paper, call us at 800 725 7616. 800 725 7616. It's about a 4-page paper that's going to get into some of the details that we're not going to get into today. But you can have that for free, 800 725 7616. Your required minimum distribution, moving on, is based upon an age. And I just said a few moments ago that the amount that you have to take out is about 4% at 73 years old. But here's one thing that happens is every year the percentage you have to take out increases. So that by the time you're 90 years old, oh, but Andrew, I'm not going to live to 90 years old. Well, it's very interesting that you say that, because 50% of couples who are 65 years old, one of them will reach 92 years old. So the chances of you reaching your 90s is very good if you're 65 years old or older. But at 90 years old, your RMD is very high. It's like 9% that you have to take out. And at that point, most people's RMDs are going to be digging into their principal, which is egregious. But you need to make sure that your allocations are set up properly for RMDs. But required minimum distribution is something that's required to start happening at the appropriate age. If you have not yet started taking RMDs, that age is 73 years old. You have to take out that amount every year, sometime between January 1st and December 31st. And we recommend to do it before December if you can. But that's a very important thing to make sure that you do it right. Otherwise, there's a 25% penalty.
Which that has recently changed. It used to be 50,
50.
and now they dropped it down. I think it's kind of interesting. Um, I think it's kind of interesting, you know, who's running the government right now and how benefits are changing. So some of these new laws, they keep pushing retirement, they keep pushing RMDs out, which um, is allowing, you know, boomers especially to not have to pay those taxes, not take money out of their money. And they changed the stretch IRA rules. So you can't stretch like, if a what is it, the silent generation has passed, when they pass money to, let's say, a Gen Xer,
Huh?
the Gen Xer is going to pay tax on that money,
Yeah.
and they're taking all these liabilities and putting on the younger. So it will be interesting as we go, and millennials get more and more into government because they're going crazy in government right now. What will happen to these things if the rules will start taking benefits away from boomers? But that's just as we're talking here, you know, it seems the benefits keep getting better and better for boomers, and maybe that will change as we go here, but we'll see. That's just a thought that came to mind as we're talking through these things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, along with that is the idea that um, they lowered the penalty from 50% to 25%. And then they came in and they've done some other things with the penalty. But the point is that I want to bring across is I have never seen in my 30 years, I've never seen um, the 50% anybody pay the 50% penalty to the IRS. But I got to believe, and I do believe, that now that they lowered it to 25%, that many more people are going to be paying it, that they're not going to have as much grace and leeway for people who miss their RMDs and don't do it properly. So that's going to be assessed. That's part of the idea why they wanted so many more. I think why they wanted so many more IRS 80,000 IRS agents. Now I know that got stepped on and stopped right now, but that's got to be on the ticket because that's a way that the IRS will get more money. It's an idea about how the IRS can get more. And like Daniel Daniel's just talked about the stretch IRA going away, and we're going to talk about that when we come back from break. But that's another way for that for the government to get a lot more money. So anyway, the big thing is with IRAs, with the required minimum distribution, the idea was put it off until the future when your taxes would be lowered. Well, they lied. What typically people's taxes are not lower when they retire. I see a lot of people who are the same or even sometimes more and paying more in taxes than what they were previously. So nevertheless, it is what it is, but we can do things about it if you want to. And that's what this show is about. Today, we're talking about RMDs in 2023, and we want you to be able to know what you don't know so that you can address those properly. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. We have a book to go along with today's show because we believe that educated retiree is a happy and stress-free retiree. And this book is called The Retirement Income Story. And this is a book by our friend David Scranton. That's easy read book that will go through and explain different things about retirement so that you can be an educated retiree and thus a happy and stress-free retiree. Next 5 callers, that 800-725-7616 gets a free copy. Call now. 800-725-7616. We'll be right back.
You're locked on to Financial Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
I was speaking to Marty at one point. I was doing a review on his finances, what I call a financial MRI, where we were putting it underneath the scrutiny to see what his finances were going to do in retirement. And in that process, I was looking at Marty's taxes, and Marty said, "Hey, Andrew, I just don't understand. I'm 74 years old, and I had my RMD kick in last year, and my taxes went from my taxes doubled. I mean, I have $1 million in my 401k, and I took out $40,000, which is what I had to take out, but my taxes doubled. I went from paying $12,000 to $24,000 a year in taxes. Why is that? What in the world happened there with that, Andrew? I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about RMDs and what they are, when you have to take them. So what's the story? What's the deal? What's the deal here with this? Why did his taxes double?
Well, people don't, people get the idea where you make more money and you pay more taxes. That's a very simple and basic thing. But the specialized aspect and honing in on that, there's a couple things that went on. Number one, in Marty's case, is that because that extra money came in, previously he was not paying any taxes on his Social Security. Or he wasn't paying full taxes on his Social Security. Well, because this extra money come in, it bumped up how much he had to pay on Social Security. So, where he wasn't paying money on tax, he didn't get any extra money, but he had to pay more taxes on his Social Security. So that's one thing that happened. The next thing that happened is that when this money came in from his RMD, that it threw him into another tax bracket. And So he went from the 12% bracket to the 22% bracket. And then with the Social Security that came in, that's why he ended up paying, double the taxes. So it was a huge hurt to him. And they have to come up with an extra $12,000 in his case to pay taxes. That didn't help his pocketbook either.
Hmm. So are you saying people should look at some kind of planning before they have to start taking those required minimum distributions out?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Daniel. Because uh, you know, back when 401ks started and all that kind of thing, there wasn't any such thing as a Roth IRA. And Roth IRAs didn't come on the scene until somewhere around 1998. And so a lot of people don't have money in Roths. And the beautiful thing about Roths is you pay the tax before the money goes in, and then you don't ever pay tax again on the growth or anything. Whereas the 401k and IRAs are just the opposite, right? You don't pay the tax when it goes in, but you pay tax later on the whole amount. So you have to pay on the whole crop later. The Roth is like paying taxes on the seed before you plant the crop, and or the IRA and 401k is like not paying taxes on the seed, but then paying taxes on the whole crop. So there's a lot of things. Whatever we do things today, it's not a simple world anymore. The way to get the most bang for your buck and to pay the least amount of taxes and to have the best retirement is to think ahead and solve the problems before the problems hit you.
So, you said that there was this thing where you could do $2,000 a year, put money $2,000 a year into it, and build some money up over time. That's funny because I had somebody ask me the other day. Said, "Is the IRA limit still $2,000 a year?" We've had some inflation, folks. We've had some serious inflation, and although until maybe 2020, people haven't really noticed that inflation, and now people really are noticing it. We've had asset inflation. We've had money debasement. We've had some crazy, crazy things going on. And you look back, how much did F-150 cost
Right.
in 2008 compared to right now? Or, if you're in Colorado, I don't know about Connecticut, but if you're in Colorado, you look at housing from 2008 till today, it's not 2-3% a year. It's 3, 4, 5, 600%. Um, so now the IRA limit is if you're over 50, it's $7,500 for an individual, and you can pack that away. Now the cool thing is you could put that into a Roth IRA, like AAA was talking about. If you put that into a Roth IRA, you pay taxes now, which taxes are pretty cheap historically. Right now,
Mhm.
taxes are actually very cheap compared to what they've been in the past. You pack that away, and then you'll never pay tax on that again. So if we keep having this asset inflation, which it sure looks like we will based upon the money printer going burr, right?
Yeah.
Um, you'll get to take that money out and not have to pay any taxes on it. That also helps solve some of these problems that you were talking about making Social Security taxable. Um, because when you take money out of the Roth IRA, it doesn't show up on your
Which is
taxes.
that's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
If you're a business owner, now this is veering a little bit off the RMD, but if you're a business owner and you've got some extra money you're earning, there's special kinds of IRAs that or Roth 401ks that you can put money into, and you could between you and your spouse, you could probably get close to $100,000 a year into tax-free money. So if you are a business owner and you're making some money, you want to get money put tax-free, give us a call because we can help you do this. And this is huge. I cannot stress enough how amazing that is when we see, right, AAA, we see retirees now who have these big Roths and they don't have to take RMDs. They can take money out and they don't have to pay any taxes. If they're earning $1 million, 6%, six 60,000, $65,000 a year, they can take just dividends and interest, spend that on whatever they want, zero taxes. It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is RMDs in 2023. We have a paper that we'd like to give you to help you understand these things a little bit more in depth. It's just called simply Understanding Required Minimum Distributions, Understanding RMDs. You have your free copy by calling us now at 800 725 7616. 800 725 7616. Daniel, the thinking ahead, the planning ahead is very and can be very valuable. With what you're just talked about, that why put the money in pre-tax? Why not put it into the Roth IRA, and in an example of the business owner that could put as much as $100,000 into one. That's crazy. It's phenomenal. It's wonderful because later on they're not taking that. So if it's tax free, it's for me, right? When is $1,000 not $1,000? When you have to pay tax on it. So you take $1,000 out of your 401k, and by the time you pay tax on it, after it comes out, maybe you got $700 left. Well, you take $1,000 out of your Roth, and how much you pay taxes on? Zero. And that, so you got $1,000. You take 1,000 out, you got $1,000. It's a beautiful thing when we're helping people be able to plan their retirements and strategize for their retirements to be able to have tax-free money. And that's a very important thing because if you want to go on a special 40th anniversary, 50th anniversary with your whole family, take your whole family on something that's going to cost $50,000. You take $50,000 out of your 401k, and that's $50,000 of taxable income. You take $50,000 out of your Roth IRA, and there's no income tax associated with that. It's a beautiful thing. I like it, Daniel. I like it.
Yeah,
But
that's certainly a way, and it can pass down to the next generation as well. Like if you're interested in passing money, to the next generation and children's children, this is a way, at least right now,
right,
um, that you could pass that on to them tax free.
right, and then that's a very good point, Daniel, because we're talking about the required minimum distribution that people have to take out. Well, then what do you do when you take it out? It's been growing tax deferred. You take it out, you pay taxes on it. Now, what do you do with it? Well, a lot of people don't spend it. A lot of people reinvest it. If you want to spend it, great. That's what it's for. Please spend it. Spend it. But if you don't want to spend it, what do you do with it? You reinvest it. Well, now you reinvest it and you're going to pay tax on the growth. You're not going to pay tax on that money, but you're going to pay tax on the growth on that money. So it's going to be taxable. Well, like Daniel just said, there's legacy planning you can do. You can put that into something that will be for the next generation that they won't pay tax on. You won't pay tax on, they won't pay tax on it ever again. So there's some really great things that you can do depending what you're trying to do. So
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about these required minimum distributions, one of the most important things to watch out for, right, is that you're earning enough income inside of these things, right? So you've got this IRA, you've got $1 million in it, and you need to take a $40,000. Your first time, brand new, it's brand new to you. You're like, I got to that year. I got to take this money out. It's a big deal. We see this all the time. People come in and they say it's my year to take it, and some people, like you said, they want to spend it. Some people are like, oh man, I have to take this out. I got it. Right? We see both. But the most important thing is that you are generating enough income inside of that, right? Inside of that oral, you're earning $40,000, because if markets are down and you have to take $40,000 out and you're at a 30% loss, you're at a 20% loss, that's going to be very painful, right?
ouch. Yeah.
That's going to be very painful. So we can get into it more later, but what you need to do is you need to make sure that you're set up in strategies where your assets are either protected so they don't come down, or it's generating $40,000 a year or more that you can take just income out and not have to eat up your principal.
Yeah. Right. And well, that is the most important thing about these required minimum distributions, making sure that your RMD, that your allocation is set up not to dig into principal. And we'll talk more about that when we come back from break. But in the meantime, we'd like to educate you further by offering you this free book, The Retirement Income Story by David Scranton, which will give you insight and education to help you to be educated, stress-free, and happy in your retirement. You can have this for free to the next 5 callers that call us at 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616. Call now.
This is Financial Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
Triple A, we talk about Roth IRAs all the time, and I was talking to somebody about it, Roths and how important they are, and he said to me, "Yeah, but aren't IRAs good too? Because when you're older, you're probably going to earn less and be in a lower tax bracket." Now this was somebody in their 40s, not really ready to retire, and I said, "Yeah, that's that's a good point." That's how IRAs have been pushed is you'll earn less. And I said um, we see a lot of people who are earning more. They have a pension, they have Social Security, they're earning more, or they're in a higher tax bracket than when they were working. And so it is helpful to have this. And then the person said, "Yeah, but what about taking money out? If you've got Social Security, you've got IRAs, and you want to take money out, and you get that free, what's that thing called? You get that free, you could take money out without paying any taxes on it." And I said, "Yeah, but that's where it goes back. That's where it goes back to Social Security." And I kind of explained what you explained about Social Security and taxes, and it could actually push you up into a higher thing. But then I said, "You know what? You're right. It is sometimes for some people important to have money in um, IRAs because you can give to charities through your IRA that you can't with a Roth." I'm Daniel Agemy.
And I'm Andrew Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is RMDs in 2023, and we're educating you because we believe an educated consumer, an educated retiree, is a happy and stress-free retiree. And people don't know what they don't know, so we're educating you on that. Daniel, that's great, and I'm just like laughing over here because, two peas of a pod here, right? Father, son. And sometimes we know what we can finish each other's sandwiches. I mean sentences, right? And so um, um, so that's what I'm doing here when I'm thinking of that, because I was thinking about these things, this charitable qualified charitable deduction or distribution with that, before you even got going with that. So that's beautiful. So you know this is a
Before you
huge
explain that, sometimes it's hard to tell these stories on the radio. And I completely forgot one part, which is there's another reason why we like the Roths, which is because typically people are married. and
yeah,
and they're in lower brackets, and this was one of the other things that I was talking about. And one day you're both going to die, but typically people don't die at the same time, and you go
right,
into a higher tax bracket because of that. But that was
right,
also part of the story
right.
going backwards. But it doesn't, these are reasons for Ross, but there are reasons. We're all unique individuals.
That's
And
right.
so one thing doesn't fit everybody. And that's what
No,
kind of bothers you and I about
mhm.
financial
That's right.
planning is
Yeah,
it's just this is cookie cutter. Everyone needs a
yeah,
529. Everyone
yeah.
needs a Roth. Everyone needs
Right.
this, but it's not. It totally
No
depends on you, your income. Do you have a
customization.
pension? Don't you have a pension? Do you
Right.
give to charities? Okay, now yeah.
Yeah, well, you got a good point, and I just want to tell the story real quick. Right? So your mom, as you know, your mom, my wife, is born January 1st, and her father was not happy with her being born on January 1st, and he always kind of like held that over her head teasingly, that because he missed out on a tax deduction. For because if she's born on December 31st, he could have taken her as a tax deduction, that year, but he wasn't. She was born on January 1st, right? So that's this thing. But the funny thing, I think the even funnier thing is that when he died on December 31st. So his wife didn't get the deduction for the following year, from his death, right? She only was able to take him for that year, 1995, when he died. And in 1996, she was single, right? And her tax bracket went up in 1996 because of that. And so that's funny. So when we get to him, we're going to tease him about that. How he always said it about mom being born on the first, but he died on December
Uh,
31st. So anyway. So um, I thought that people might like that. Anyway,
yeah.
that's the point. Is that I don't want to pay taxes, or excuse me, I want to pay taxes. I just don't want to pay more than what I am legally have to pay, and that my fair share from that standpoint. And that's the same for my clients. I want to make sure that they don't pay more taxes than what they have to. And I've seen people pay thousands of dollars in taxes that they didn't have to pay if they looked at it properly. And I see people being taken advantage of when they buy cars. I see people taken advantage of when they do their investments. I see people being taken advantage by the medical system, by the educational system. I see a lot of people being taken advantage of in a lot of ways, and a lot of people making a lot of money that's not help. I see attorneys. I mean, myself. I mean, this is my biggest grievance right now, is that there are so many specialties with attorneys. I paid these one attorneys to give me advice, and after I paid them all this money for advice, I found out later that I was talking to the wrong attorneys, and I should have had a different kind of attorney, you know, and I basically wasted my money, or half of my money I wasted over there, which I'm not happy about. But I see I'm taken advantage of, and I see others being taken advantage of, and I don't like it. I don't want people taking advantage of it. And I'm on my soapbox, but you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is required minimum distributions in 2023, RMDs in 2023. We have a paper to go along with today's show, which is, are your allocations right for RMDs? This is what Daniel was talking about earlier when he's saying that if you're not set up for dividends and interest, you're set up in growth in the market, or you're set up in something that's paying 2%, 3%, whatever it might be, and you have to take out 4%, you're digging into your principal. That's not a good place to be. You want to make sure that your RMDs, that your allocations are set up to give you dividends and interest, so that you're able to take out of your dividends and interest and leave the principal for growing. And so this paper will help you understand how to do that. We'd love to put it in your hand so you read. It's only like a 2-page, 2.5-page paper that will give you some real insight and help you to be educated so that you can be stress free. So call now and ask for it by name, allocations. Okay, the paper allocations, 800-725-7616. It's a free paper, so we can educate you on how to be able to have a stress free retirement. 800-725-7616. Call now for that. Daniel, um, required minimum distributions happen. And one thing that people may not understand is that when somebody dies, their beneficiaries have to take the RMD. Let's say they die at 70 years old, and their children inherit the 401k, the IRA. Well, the children are going to have to take required minimum distributions for a maximum of 10 years. Now, what has happened in the past was they had prior to 2020, if you died, well, your children could continue your 401k, your IRA on into the future. It was called a stretch IRA, could go for the rest of their life. They could even use it for their retirement. But with 2020 and the Secure Act of 2019, actually, what happened is that they stopped that. They said, okay, when somebody dies, all the money has to be out of the 401k IRA within 10 years. No longer are we pushing it out into the future. So you could wait, your beneficiaries can wait until the 10th year, take it all out, but in the meantime, they're going to have to take minimum distributions. Or they can take it all out in the first year or somewhere in there. And that's what Daniel was alluding to earlier in the show when he said that people are going to have to pay the taxes on it. Your children are going to have to pay taxes on it at sooner or later at one point. So the IRS is going to get their money a lot faster than they were prior to the Secure Act.
And put people into higher tax brackets potentially, because the amounts they're taking out are larger. It may be like you took 10% out each year, or you don't take any out and then you take the whole thing. Well, if you take the whole thing, it'd be 40% easily, right? And then
Right,
if you're like live in some of these states like New Jersey, California, some of these
right.
states, you know, you're not even getting half
50%.
of,
Right,
you're
right.
not
Not
even
even
getting
50,
it.
right.
Yeah.
Right, because California, I think, in the highest bracket is like 11, 12% or something.
I
Then,
think it's like
then, you
16% now.
Is it that high? And then you're going to be in the 35, 40% bracket or something. So you're over 50%. You're giving more to the government in that case. And today it's nothing for somebody to have $1 million, $2 million
Yeah,
plus in their
yeah,
IRAs, 401ks, especially when they die, right?
right.
And it's nothing for somebody to have one child or two children. I mean, if you have like me, I have 8 kids. Well, that gets watered down, right? But 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 if you have $2 million and you have 2 kids, that's $1 million each they're going to inherit that they have to take out within 10 years. Minimally, they have to take out $100,000 a year each. Their kids are probably doing well themselves. So now they're being pushed potentially into a new tax bracket because of that. And then they're going to be taxed on the growth of that money once they take it out. So it strategizing for retirement, strategizing for RMDs is important. But the biggest, most important thing is to make sure that the allocations are set up properly.
Okay, so we got distracted and we're running out of time here, but do you want to tell us about the way people can the reason to be diversified and keep some money in IRAs, because there is a way people can take that money out tax free.
Yeah, you're right about getting distracted. Oh man, sorry, Daniel. Oh, sorry, you're listening to all this there. Okay, so qualified charitable distributions. Today the standard deduction for a married couple is somewhere around $27,000, give or take. Which if you're not giving, what that means is tax interest you're paying on your house, taxes up to $10,000, state and local taxes up to $10,000, and whatever things, distribution, charity that you're giving. Now, if you have medical payments that bring it up over that, well, then you would itemize. If you are having all these itemized things that are over $27,000, you are itemized. But most people are not over that point. So most people, when they give to their charities, they can't deduct that money like in the old days. So, um, you give in 5,000, $10,000, to your church or whatever, and you can't deduct it. That doesn't help you because it's a part of the standard deduction. Well, if you give, when you hit 70 and a half, let's just say you're giving $5,000 to your church. When you reach 70 and a half, you can take that out of your IRA and it is not taxable and you can give it to the church. So you're getting the benefit of that. Even though you take your $27,000 itemized deduction and you give that money to the church, that's that $5,000 or your charitable organization. And so it's almost like you're deducting 20 or 30, excuse me, $32,000 as opposed to 27,000. So that is a big thing to some people because there are a lot of people who are charitable. And just one of the principles in life that works is giving unto others, giving 10% away, whether you believe in giving a tithe, as God talks about in the Word of God, or you think about just about giving to people. You give away, and there's a blessing that comes because of that. And so as you sow, things you reap. Um, anyway, we're giving away a book. We have to take a break. We're running overtime here. This is called The Retirement Income Story. It's yours for free by calling 800-725-7616. Next 5 callers, 800-725-7616 for your free book, The Retirement Income Story, tell you about retirement. Call now.
This is Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
I'm a gearhead. I'm admittedly a gearhead. I love cars. You know, my brother, who's 12 years my senior, bought a brand new Mustang GT in 1965, and he used to let me sit in the middle and shift for him. I got it in my blood. I'm a gearhead. I love working on cars. I love cars. I love working on cars. But and I was a mechanic at one point in time before I got into financial business, and I was a body man. I love body work because I get to make the cars look really beautiful, and I'm a visual, and I love seeing the beauty of. I love good running cars. I used to work on cars all the time. In 20 years old, 22 years old, I was working on cars. I rebuilt cars in the summertime, go back to college, sell the car, go back to college, paid my way through college by building cars and that kind of thing, and just have done all this kinds of things. But guess what? I buy brand new cars today and I take them to the mechanic to work on. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today, we're talking about required minimum distributions and maybe some tricks and secrets that you can do to get money out tax free or to plan ahead so that you can make sure that your money is lasting as long as you do. Dad, what is mechanicking, building cars? What does this have to do with required minimum distributions?
Well, back in the day, Daniel, 40 years ago, a lot of people worked on their own cars.
Mm,
But how many people are working on their own cars today? Because they're not cars anymore. They're computers on wheels, right?
yeah.
And it takes a specialty. They're not even called mechanics anymore. They're called technicians because of the technology that's in cars today, right? I don't dare touch a car today. I don't even like changing oil in my cars today because I'm afraid I'm going to do something wrong at this stuff. But you give me my 1968 T-Bird, and I'll pull the engine out of that, and I'll redo that, and that's a whole nother thing because it was simpler. It was something that anybody could do in the past, but today it's a specialty. And not only are is cars a specialty, but there's different type of cars and different specialties of cars, right? Whether it's an electric car or it's a diesel or it's a high performance car or whatever it is. There's all these specialties with that, and how you work on them is different. So the point behind that is don't try this at home. We're talking about required minimum distributions. We're talking about doing them properly so you don't get a penalty. Talking about doing them properly so you don't pay more taxes than you have to pay. And we haven't even talked about the tax that comes into play for Medicare and such if you do too much of a take too much out. But the point is, don't try this at home. It takes specialized people with specialized knowledge to do this
And
in a way
tools.
and specialized tools in their toolbox to do this in a way that's going to work for you. Now, there's a lot of people out there that will say, "Oh, I'm a mechanic. I can work on that car." But when you get it back, is it really going to be what you want it to be? The same thing in the financial world. There's a lot of people that say, "Oh, I can do that for you. I can help you retire." But are they really going to help you retire and stay retired? Or are you going to have to retire from retiring?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that mechanic analogy is great because think about how um how specific these things are, right? Like you said, computers, and you need really high end um tools to work on these things, right?
Right, right.
And they're expensive. So, like, if you want to go work on your cars yourself, the amount of money you would have to invest to get the tools to do so is just it's not worth it unless you love it that much. And that's the same with the education or the tools um, to work on these your investments, requirement and distributions, the planning for the requirement and distributions. We talked about how everyone's unique and individual. What ended up happening all the time is we see the cookie cutter approach
Mm-hmm.
where it's just like all investors are the same. Well, first of all, you're in different phases of life and you need
Right.
to invest different ways. You need to own different types of investments. I think it's so silly when like a young person, someone would be like, you should buy bond funds and they're in their 20s. And it's like, why? Why would you buy bond funds if you're in your 20s? So you
Mm-hmm.
can increase volatility. Well, they're not trading them. It's not like they're going to sell out of the bond funds and buy into stock funds when stocks crash. They're just
Right.
going to sit there. They're going to sit there for 40 years,
Yeah.
right? But then you'll have a retiree and it's like I love stocks. I love stocks mutual. They're all in stocks, but then like you have a 30% correction and they have to take an RMD and they're like, how come nobody told me about this?
Mm-hmm.
How come nobody told me I'm going to have to take a requirement distribution and sell my mutual fund when it's down 30%?
Yeah. Right.
And these cookie cutter approaches don't work, or the tools, like what tools are becoming more and more available, but how good are they? The things that you need to do the analysis on individual companies are very expensive and difficult to use. It's a learning curve. You need to go get education on how to do these things. And you can go take college classes and do these things to learn how to use these. But the difficulty comes in who do you want to use your time to do that? Do you want to invest the money to get these? So then what happens is people take the shortcuts, right? and they just buy funds. I don't have the tools to do the individual analysis on individual companies. So they take the shortcut and they buy a fund that just owns everything. That way, if one goes bad, it doesn't matter. But the problem is you give up return. You have to pay more fees, internal fees, and it starts costing you. It starts costing you more than you know because you don't see those second and third order consequences. You don't see the fees that you're paying. Like you said, the guy that took his RMD and it ended up doubling his taxes. If he had
Right.
paid someone who knows how to do it
Right.
to help him plan ahead of time, he could have avoided that. He wouldn't have paid near that much to have the right person help
Right.
him, right?
Right.
But so
Right.
these second and third order consequences, just like if you try to fix your car. I know a guy who did this. Tried to fix his own car. He took the whole engine apart and he couldn't get it back together. He didn't have the tools to do it, and he had to pay somebody multiples of what he could have done if he just took it to the mechanic in the first place.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is RMDs in 2023, required minimum distributions, making sure that you take them properly and efficiently, making sure that your allocations are right, because it's very important to get dividends and interest to be able to give you the RMD without digging into the principal. And we have a paper that explains that to you that we'd love to put in your hands. It's called Are Your Allocations Right for RMDs? Just call it allocations. Call us now at 800 725 7616 for your free paper. 800 725 7616. Daniel, this is important to be able to bring these thoughts across in regard to this specialization and having the right tools to do the fees, like you said. So many people are paying multiples of fees, even um, than what they could be for the right person, right? I mean, I told the story earlier that I paid attorneys, I paid two attorneys money for information that they gave me that well, only half of the information was useful, and then I found out that the right attorney was less expensive than those attorneys. And that's what happens so many times with people's finances. They're paying the wrong guy too much money or gal to help them with their finances that they think they're getting. And how many bad advisors does it take to ruin somebody's retirement? One.
One.
One. And if you happen to get that one and get your retirement ruined, you're in bad shape. It's egregious. So that is the key, making sure that you're having the right people, you're working with the right people to do the right things at the right time in the right way. Somebody that does it, that's not just book knowledge. I mean, there's these technician, these colleges that teach people how to be automotive mechanics and technicians, right? And I hear stories about these guys that come out of them that if I had a classic, you know, something, right? Porsche, right? 1966 Porsche. Am I going to let one of these guys work on my classic 1966 Porsche? No way. They have no clue. There's book knowledge, there's real world knowledge. I want somebody that not only has book knowledge but real world knowledge to work on that Porsche, right? So in the same way, do you want people that just have book knowledge? They have all these fancy letters after their name and don't have the real world experience to go around with them, or what? So there's a lot of ways. If you want information on how to be able to choose the right advisor, we got information we can educate you on that. Because here's the thing, right? I remember seeing the bumper sticker. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance, right?
Yeah.
So if you think your financial paying somebody to do your taxes, paying somebody to help you financially is expensive, try it without it. I mean, do you want to retire from retiring? Well, I hope if you retire from retiring, it's only because you want to go back to work, not because you need to go back to work. So, anyway, I'm off my soapbox. You've been listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic has been RMDs in 2023. And we have a book to go along with today's show to help you because we believe that an educated retiree is a happy and stress-free retiree. Call for your free copy of The Retirement Income Story by our friend David Scranton. David Agemy, David Scranton. He's this is a guy with a lot of initials and a lot of alphabet soup after his name, but he's got real world knowledge to back it up, and he gives you some of that knowledge right here that will help you to be happy and stress-free in retirement. Call him now for your free copy of Retirement Income Story, 800-725-7616 to the next 5 callers. Call now.